In 2024, the average American family throws away nearly 40% of the food they buy. We scrape perfectly good potato skins into the bin, we pour the liquid from a can of beans down the drain, and we toss the heels of a loaf of bread as if they were nothing more than packing material. We do this because we live in a culture of disposable abundance, where the next meal is always just a click or a drive away. But to Grandma, that 40% wasn't waste, it was the margin between a cold night and a full stomach. It was the difference between her children feeling like beggars or feeling like royalty. To her, a scrap wasn't trash. It was an ingredient waiting for its moment. She didn't have a composting bin, she had a miracle pot. She understood a fundamental truth that we have traded for convenience. The most intense flavor in any vegetable, the most nutrient-dense part of any animal, and the most soul-satisfying texture in any grain, is usually found in the parts the modern world throws away. Grandma performed a kind of kitchen alchemy every single day, turning nothing into something through a combination of patience, chemistry, and a deep-seated respect for the earth. Today, we see zero-waste lifestyle influencers on social media trying to sell us expensive gadgets to help us save our scraps, but Grandma did it with a seasoned cast iron skillet and a stoneware jar kept by the sink. These 10 kitchen miracle meals weren't just ways to save a nickel, they were proof of a person's resilience. They were the meals that turned a hard life into a good life. Number 10 on this list is a dish that today's high-end brunch spots call a savory artisan bread bake, and charge $30 for, yet for Grandma, it was just the way she dealt with a loaf of bread that had gone as hard as a brick. If you want to understand how she fed a family of 8 on a budget that wouldn't buy a cup of coffee today, you have to look at the scraps. Let's count down the 10 forgotten kitchen miracle meals Grandma used to turn trash into treasure. Number 10. The Second Life bread pudding. Modern bread is full of preservatives that keep it soft for weeks, but the bread Grandma baked or bought at the local mill was alive. Within 3 days, it was stale. Within 5, it was a weapon. Most people today would toss those hard crusts, but Grandma saw them as the foundation of a masterpiece. She would tear the bread into rough chunks and soak them in a mixture of water and a single beaten egg, or milk if the cow was producing well. But the miracle wasn't in the soak, it was in the seasoning. She would add a handful of wild onions gathered from the fence row and a spoonful of bacon grease. As it baked, the outside of the bread would regain its crunch while the inside turned into a savory, onion-scented custard that felt more like a steak than a starch. It was heavy, it was filling, and it cost effectively $0. Number 9. The bacon grease heirloom. If there was a holy grail in Grandma's kitchen, it was the grease jar. Every time she fried a strip of fatback or a slice of bacon, the liquid gold was poured through a fine mesh strainer into a jar that sat permanently on the back of the stove. This wasn't just fat, it was a concentrate of memory. Because that jar was never empty, the flavors of 100 different breakfasts were layered inside. She used it to fry potatoes, to season green beans, and to grease the pans for her cornbread. It gave every single dish a smoky, savory depth that you cannot buy in a store. Today, we buy liquid smoke and organic lard in plastic bottles, but we are just trying to replicate the magic that Grandma had sitting in a chip jar for free. Number 8. Potato parchment chips. When Grandma peeled potatoes for Sunday dinner, those skins never touched the floor. She knew that the skin is where the potato hides all its minerals and its best texture. She would toss the skins in a bit of that bacon grease and roast them on a hot piece of tin in the oven until they were so thin and crispy they would shatter in your mouth. They were the original potato chip, but with an earthy, nutty flavor that puts modern bagged snacks to shame. It was a lesson in hidden value. The part we discard is often the part that sustains us the most. Number 7. The sour milk miracle. In the days before refrigeration was perfect, milk would often turn blinked or sour before it could be finished. Today, we see a sell-by date and pour it down the drain in a panic. Grandma saw it as a gift from the heavens. Sour milk is essentially a natural leavening agent. She would use it to make the fluffiest, highest-rising biscuits you've ever seen, or pancakes that had a tangy, sourdough-like bite. The acid in the sour milk reacted with a pinch of baking soda to create a light, airy texture that fresh milk simply couldn't achieve. It was a miracle born of a mistake. Number 6. The bone marrow toast. When the local butcher had trash bones left over, the shanks and knuckles that no one wanted, Grandma would buy them for a penny or trade for a basket of eggs. She would roast them until the marrow inside turned into a molten, buttery spread. This is the God's butter that modern foodies pay $40 for in Parisian bistros, but for Grandma, it was the only way to get a hit of rich, fatty protein when meat was too expensive. She would spread that gray, bubbling marrow over a piece of toast and sprinkle it with coarse salt. It was the most decadent thing in the world, born from the parts of the animal the rest of the world considered garbage. It provided the collagen and the vitamins that kept her joints moving and her skin clear long into her 80s. She wasn't following a paleo diet. She was just making sure that if a creature gave its life for a family, she honored every single inch of it. These meals weren't accidents. They were a philosophy of life that said nothing is without value if you have the eyes to see it. Number 5. The broccoli heart. Most people today treat broccoli as a collection of tiny green trees attached to a waste product. They cut the florets off and toss the thick, woody stalk directly into the trash bin. Grandma looked at that stalk and saw the most tender, expensive-tasting part of the plant. She would take a sharp paring knife and strip away the tough, fibrous outer skin, revealing a pale, lime-green heart that was as sweet as a water chestnut and as crisp as a fresh apple. She would slice these hearts paper-thin and sauté them in a bit of butter and salt. It was a miracle vegetable hidden inside. Number 4. The liquid gold. When we open a can of beans today, or boil a pot of greens, the very first thing we do is tip that liquid down the sink. We've been conditioned to believe that it's just dirty water. But to Grandma, that liquid was the pot liquor. It was a concentrated solution of vitamins and minerals. She would save the liquid from the green beans to use as the base for her Monday gravy, or she would let the bean water simmer down until it became a thick, savory syrup that she would stir back into her cornbread batter. It added a depth of flavor and silky